Hey everybody, Robert Rambles here, and today we are going to talk a little bit about the Season of Discovery and my thoughts and my feelings and my experiences about the season. This is one of the most frequent questions that I get asked during the streams. Do you like SOD? Do you enjoy SOD? Is SOD good? Is SOD fun? So I'll tackle a few of these questions and I'll just kind of try to share my thoughts. And my own experiences are obviously going to be very different than yours, so it's okay if we don't agree, if our ideas and experiences are different. That's normal. We are different people. So, SOD, is it good? It's good for World of Warcraft. It's really great to see the new idea generation and the experimentation that has taken place in the Season of Discovery. It's good to see that the team has been given so much autonomy, so much free will to experiment and to do what they want with the season. And it's been really good to see the Classic team actually grow. They actually increased their head count recently, which is good. It can't not be good for the overall health of the game. It's also brought more attention and possibly more interest to Classic WoW. So that's really awesome as well. Obviously, the different takes on the Classic era classes, it's really fun. Like, who doesn't want to be a Warlock tank or a Rogue tank or a Mage healer? All those things about the season are really cool. So, like, overall, for the health of the game, SOD has been pretty amazing. Now, have I really enjoyed SOD? Is SOD good for me? The answer to that question is no, not really. I have not really enjoyed the season very much, especially after the first phase ended. It hasn't really been great for me personally, so now I'm going to share some of my own criticisms, my own feelings about the season. None of what follows is a valuation of the worth of the season. None of what follows is meant to be a negation or a refutation of your feelings or your opinions or your experiences if they are different from mine. Like I said, we are different people, so it's obvious that we're going to have different opinions and different experiences with this kind of gameplay. So yeah, for me personally, there are a handful of things that kind of come together that make the season unenjoyable. And the biggest problem for me has been the leveling experience. Just how we level up in SOD. So let's talk about the level bands. The season's artificial level caps, which for me have really made it feel like a season of time gating. I really hate time gating in things like campaign chapters in retail, where, you know, you do 20 minutes of story and then you have to wait a week to do the next 20 minutes, so on and so forth. And it turns out, not really a big surprise, that I like time gating even less when it is attached directly to my character's leveling progress. Obviously, you know, it's a way, they said it's a way to prevent players from feeling like they've gotten too far behind to bother engaging with the season. The weird thing is, even with the level bands, I would get people in the streams all the time that would ask, you know, is it too late to start SOD? Have I already missed SOD? People were already feeling this way in phase 1, so did having the artificial level bands defeat FOMO, fear of missing out? I don't really think that it did. People seem to be as affected by FOMO as ever. There are always going to be people that when the level band opens up, they are cap in like a day. And then there are going to be people that feel like because they can't play that much that they are left behind, that there really isn't a point for them to engage with the season. What the level bands actually did was it gives the devs time to work on content that's not done. It allows them to have the season going, but not have all of the content made. So they really need the level bands because they really need the additional development time to work on the new leveling raids, the new battleground areas, and stuff like that. But for me, the artificial level caps just, they don't do it for me. I don't enjoy the level caps. I don't really enjoy the leveling raids very much. I don't feel incentivized as a player to really engage a lot with the level up raids. Knowing that eventually I'm going to replace that gear at actual level cap, I'm not going to be worried about the gear that I got in BFD or the gear that I got in Nomergon by the time I get to 60 and start engaging with the actual endgame content. So yeah, as a player that's not super interested in farming that one raid twice a week for 3 months, who's not interested in doing the PvP event over and over again, the level caps, they just aren't for me. What they do for me is they serve as an opportunity for me to kind of lose interest and lose touch with the characters that I'm leveling. And that has happened multiple times. I leveled up a bunch of characters in Phase 1, and then kind of waiting for Phase 2 to come out, I lost track of those characters, and I lost interest in them. So for me personally, the level bans, despite the purpose that they try to serve, it's just really a big miss for me. What the level bans kind of do is they kind of make me think like I should just wait till level 60 is open. Should I bother playing? Should I just wait till level 60? You know, especially with the unpredictable bonus to experience gains. You know, when the season launched, they had a plan for what the experience bonuses were going to be like, and then it just seems like in Phase 2 they just abandoned that plan. All of a sudden we went from having no bonus XP from 25 to 40 to having 100% bonus XP all the way up to 39. It's incredibly unpredictable for experience gains. It really distorts the classic journey, in my opinion, and kind of just invalidates one of the biggest things about classic that matters to me, which is the actual leveling journey. And it does kind of make me think like, yeah, like the best thing to do in SOD would probably be to wait till level 60 is up. That way all the XP gains will be kind of finalized. Any big changes to like the rep system, like waylaid supplies, all that stuff will be closer to being finalized. And then when 60 is open, you'll at least have some idea of what the endgame activities are and if they're actually interesting to you. It's kind of the most important thing is like not having the option to take a character on a complete journey all the way to the actual level cap without being forced to set it down several times along the way. And yeah, that's been the biggest miss for me about the season, has been just the journey. I think that for me, the leveling experience was a big miss. I feel like the Season of Mastery, how it started off with the 40% experience bonus, not capping your leveling at any point, letting you go all the way to 60, that really hit a good spot for me for classic era leveling. 40% was a bit of a bonus as you got higher up in level, though it wasn't an overwhelming bonus. You didn't feel like you were trivializing content or skipping zones or anything like that. So, you know, despite the fact that Season of Mastery did not have any new content, I do feel like the leveling cadence in Season of Mastery, it was better for me. Just not having to put the character down, not having to try to just roll up alt after alt after alt to fill time in the season. So yeah, an SOM-like leveling experience would have been better. I guess I really would have preferred that if there were new raids, new PvP events, that all that stuff would happen at level 60. That would have been a better way to handle it for me. And then sprinkling in stuff like waylaid supplies, world events, new rare spawns, world bosses, things like that could have been really good content for like new content while leveling up our characters. It's kind of weird to me. It feels like the Season of Discovery kind of hits its mark a lot more with players that are endgame focused than it does with what I would think of as your average vanilla era classic enjoyer. Definitely things like focus on gear score, focus on logs, focus on pre-raid bis, on your parses, focuses on playing to an ever-shifting, ever-changing class meta. Those things are very reminiscent to me of retail endgame. And they aren't really things that I would really have associated with classic era. These are just some aspects of the game that don't really appeal to me personally. Like I said, I don't have an interest in farming low-level raids over and over and over again just to compete with my own logs. I never really felt compelled to chase pre-raid bis for like a level 25 or a level 40 raid. And it just doesn't feel interesting or engaging to me. I never really used to think that 40-man group sizes were any good. But recently I've kind of thought that at least with like a 40-man group size, maybe there would be less of a focus on things like having your bis. Maybe there would be less of a focus on gear score. Maybe there would be less of a focus on worrying about if someone has cleared all the bosses already before inviting them into your group. I don't know. You know, they've promised 40-man raids at level 60, so we'll have to see if it changes how groups are formed or how requirements are conceived, because I do think that, especially for me, like the current environment and like the reliance on logs and gear score and add-ons, it feels a little toxic. It feels low-key toxic, and ultimately it doesn't really feel like classic era to me. And then another thing, something we haven't talked about yet, you're probably wondering, why haven't we talked about runes? Well, let's talk a little bit about runes. Anybody who's hung out in the streams at all and listened to me talk about SOD knows that I don't like runes. It's not that I don't like the abilities. I love all the class changes and seeing the variations of the different specs. I really hate rune acquisition. I don't think that rune acquisition is interesting. I don't think that it's fun. I don't think that it really elicits a feeling of discovery for the most part. Outside of the handful of runes that you can kind of stumble across on your own naturally while leveling, and the few that have interesting lore tidbits, I found rune acquisition really tedious, really boring gameplay. It often comes across feeling like a blatant time sink, and more often than not, myself and probably most players simply have a Wowhead tab open, and we're just kind of following the steps on Wowhead, you know? It's like we open up Wowhead, and 2.5 hours of running around later, we have Divine Storm. So yeah, that's not really an interesting quest line or an event. A lot of people who talk to me about runes, they say, well, it's just something that I get done. It's something that I just do it, I just get it done on my character, I grab the ones that I need for my build, and that's it. I haven't really talked to anybody who has said, oh man, I love runes, I think that it feels so good to go out and find them on my own out in the world. Like, no one has really had like a lot of positive things to say about how runes are acquired. Most people say they follow the guide, they just do it to get it done, and that's it. So it's really difficult also to see how like a majority of players would find a lot of their runes organically through exploring. A lot of them are in out-of-the-way places that unless you're looking at a guide, you really wouldn't even know like how to begin. I think I would have preferred a season of discovery where the discoveries were not your class abilities. Imagine a season of discovery where the discoveries were not your abilities. Imagine if they were things like gear for your class, piles of gold, new quests that all classes could partake in, things like trinkets, world bosses, new elites, areas where there are like elites, like new elite villages, where groups of players could go and farm XP, new crafting recipes, things like that. Those types of discoveries, to me at least, would have felt more satisfying and rewarding to players of all classes. And, you know, we could have learned our new abilities either traditionally by training them at specified levels, or if you want to drive people out into the world, just let them be class quests. Let it be a quest that you pick up from your trainer at certain level thresholds that are, at least to start, a little bit more guided to get you to start. Even if later you gotta kind of like piece a mystery together or solve something on your own, at least giving players like a foothold into the quest, into the traveling to get the rune, maybe could have made those feel a little bit better. For me, when I think about running around to get all of my runes on every character to complete my spellbook, in the end, it was kind of that thought that squashed most of my desire to level any of my other alts from 25 to 40. I just couldn't conceive of taking the time that would be necessary to get all of those runes on all of those characters. And, you know, you could say, like, don't get all the runes. You could say just get the few that you need for your build. You're not going to need all of them. But honestly, like, at the end of the day, it feels bad to know that you have this character that you've leveled up that doesn't have a complete spellbook, that you don't want to put the time in to get all of their abilities. Especially strange in a season of WoW where they seem to want people to roll alts. You know, they gave us a huge experience buff, thinking like this will get people to roll many alts. But then they didn't really do anything to make lower level rune acquisition easier for people. There are lots of low level runes that require you to have groups, that require you to seek the help of other players. And like as the season goes on, there are less people around in those lower level brackets to help you out. So if you don't have a guild or a community, a lot of times you could be standing around for 15 minutes waiting for someone else with a fire spell to come help you break the frozen murloc out of the ice, or something like that, waiting for somebody to come and click a portal so you can summon a guy and kill him. I would have at least liked to see maybe some of the grouping requirements removed from some of the lower level runes. Really what I'd like to see is that for the lower level runes that are like in the old level brackets, just make them trainable. Either make them trainable at the vendor, maybe we purchase them for a little bit of gold off the rep vendor, I'm not sure, but like having a way for lower level runes to be acquired a bit more easily would have been like at least something to ease that pain. Given a more traditional method of learning my abilities, and then, you know, if the discoveries had been divorced from spec development and more numerous, made to feel more optional, there's a good chance that I probably would have leveled a lot of my characters up. Even with the interrupted leveling journey, had some of those things been streamlined a bit, it would have been a lot more appealing to level up a bunch of my alts. I would have loved to see all the class changes that they did, you know, especially the big ones like the melee hunter, the healing mage. That would have been really nice if rune acquisition wasn't in the state that it's currently in. As it stands now, in a season with rune acquisition, enforced level bans, and like no new solo player content at the level caps, I really only plan to go back to my rep pally once each band opens, and then shelf it. And then at level 60, we will cross our fingers, and we'll see. We'll hope for better than D tier DPS in the meta, and we'll see what the devs come up with for the true endgame content in the season. Along with whatever raids and PvP events they put together, I really hope that they have some compelling content for solo players. Or just people that want something to do between raids, between PvP sessions. Like right now, there's really not a lot. You do the raid on lockout, you can farm up the PvP event if you're a PvP player, which not everybody is. So I don't know if maybe like the answer for open world like solo player content, maybe it's daily quest, maybe it's world quest. I know those aren't very popular. Maybe it's something like the mage tower, or perhaps like a timeless isle type of zone. Maybe do all those things and see what people love and see what they don't, and then just whatever people seem to like, make more of that type of content. I'd really love nothing more than to have things to do at the level band on a daily basis as a solo player who's not interested in doing the raids. That would be ideal. So yeah, you know, I've enjoyed some aspects of the season. The first level ban was the best for me, probably because I was playing in a guild. In the second level ban, playing on Wild Growth without a guild, that's when I kind of encountered some of the more toxic and some of the more depressing parts of the season, where it became really apparent that people were all about the meta and all about pre-raid bis, all about gear score, wanting people to have already done the content all the way through before they're able to get into a pug. And yeah, I find many aspects of the season jarring or abrasive, too much so to really enjoy it more than a week or two after the start of the phase. Phase 2, with its big, out-of-nowhere massive XP bonus, and then its focus on dungeon grinding because of Stranglethorn being nearly impossible to quest in, was really, really draining. It's one of the things I don't really understand, why they chose Stranglethorn to be that zone where they did their big PvP event. Because Stranglethorn, if you're a quester, if you like the journey and you like to quest, you have to go to Stranglethorn between 30 and 40. Everybody has to go there. Alliance, Horde. It's entirely not optional to skip out on questing in Stranglethorn if you are a person who enjoys leveling up by doing quest. They could have had the PvP event in like a more out-of-the-way place, and that would have helped out a lot, because I remember just trying to do a little bit of questing in Stranglethorn and everything was killed. There were players killing players everywhere, and it was a real big mess, and that led us to dungeon grinding. And we dungeon ground from like level 20 all the way to level 40, and that was just like, for me, that was like Burnout City. So I really didn't enjoy that. I hope that for whatever they do with their PvP zone in phase 3, that it will be somewhere very much more like out of the way, a place less frequented by players that are questing, maybe somewhere like Alterac, somewhere like Swamp of Sorrows, somewhere with a fraction of the quest that Stranglethorn has. So yeah, that's kind of my overall thoughts, guys. I mean, I could go on and on about this, and I definitely have in the streams at length. But overall, to me, for a season of Classic Era WoW, it really stopped feeling like Classic Era really fast. It really started to feel like retail endgame grind, except emptier, because in retail endgame, there's a lot of stuff to do. You can Mythic Plus, you can raid, you can farm up world quest, you know, there's solo player content, there's cosmetics, there's the trading post, there's renown grinds. There's lots of stuff to do, even if you're a solo player in retail endgame. And so this has like parts of retail endgame that I don't like, but it kind of abandons like most of the things about Classic that I really love. And if they ever get the opportunity to do a season again, I would love for them to focus on making the journey more interesting. Just focusing on the journey, making it more interesting. Maybe look at Season of Mastery leveling and kind of work with like maybe like a 25% XP buff that doesn't increase over time. Don't increase the XP buff. What happens when you do that is it demotivates people who've been playing, because it's almost like you're invalidating a lot of their efforts. It's like when we level up with no XP buff and then suddenly there's 100% XP buff, you're like, oh, ouch. Like, it just feels bad, and it makes you feel like, hey, maybe I should stop playing and just wait for them to increase the XP buff again and again. But then you realize that that's not what you want either. Because especially if you are a Classic era player and that is what you enjoy the most, you are really in it for that journey. So yeah, I hope they take some lessons learned, and we'll have to see how, you know, the subsequent phases go. Obviously, anything could change. We are not even in Phase 3 yet. We don't have a date on Phase 3. We don't know what kind of experience bonus we're getting in Phase 3 or what the level cap content will look like in Phase 3. So, you know, I could have a different opinion in a few months. But these are my thoughts right now on Phases 1 and 2 of Season of Discovery. Thank you guys for being here for it. Again, keep in mind, these are just my own opinions based on my experiences. Yours are probably going to be slightly different. There will be some things you agree with. There will be some things that you don't. So yeah, thank you guys again. As always, take care of yourselves out there in the real world and take care of each other. And we will see you in Azeroth sometime very soon. Bye for now.